This is the problem. How do you now work out where these holes are going to be? One of the most important things to think about before you actually go ahead and build your pond is installing an in-wall pond skimmer similar to this one. Let's take a closer look. So what exactly is a pond skimmer? Well, it's a device that you're going to build into the wall of your pond, and it will draw in surface water, catching any leaves, any uneaten food, and it'll prevent that horrible greasy layer, that bubbly layer that you sometimes see forming on the top of ponds. Installed properly, it'll give you excellent water clarity. Let's do an unboxing video, shall we? Let's see what you get in the pack. Here we are. This is not going to plan, is it? Right, let's hope I don't drop any more of this. Your skimmer has a few main parts to it. You got the main body of the skimmer. You got the basket that goes inside to catch the leaves and the uneaten food. A weir plate that just slots in position there. And then you've got flanges and gaskets that actually trap your liner and hold it in place. I had a conversation with someone and I told them that you could almost fit a skimmer onto a pond with a liner with your eyes closed. This kit actually includes an eyeball return as well, which makes it even better value for money. An eyeball return can be concreted into the wall of your pond, and what it does is it gives you the ability to control the way that the water flows back in. It's got that little ball in there that you rotate around and a locking collar that just nips the ball in position. Once that's embedded in the wall of your pond and the water's pushing in through there, you can alter the way that the water pattern comes into the pond. Excellent value for money, that. Flanges and the rubber gasket are only really required when you're waterproofing the pond with a liner. If you're going to fiberglass the pond, what most people do is they fill this void up either with car body filler or even mortar, and then the fiberglasser will just bring the fiberglass in and that'll key onto the plastic. The actual weir plate does normally get held in position with the gasket, but all that you need to do is just drill a tiny little hole through the fiberglass when it's been done, and then that'll just slot in there and that'll hold it nicely anyway. I'm going to show you a method that is so incredibly foolproof that this is absolutely the best way of doing it. Included in the kit is these hose tail adapters that screw into the bottom of the skimmer. But these are only going to be used if you're using flexible pipe. I'd recommend that you use solvent weld pipe. So you'll need to get an adapter to go in the bottom. And before you put it in, you're going to wind white plumber's tape around it, and then you're simply going to wind it into the bottom of your skimmer, making sure that you don't over tighten it. You certainly shouldn't be using any grips or anything like that. Just hand tight is absolutely all you need to do. And then onto that you're going to connect a 90-degree bend and a short piece of pipe to get you straight out the wall. The most important thing to consider when you're installing the skimmer in your pond is where it's going to be located. In particular, two things: the elevation in the wall and also the actual location on the pond, because the returns that are bringing the water back in need to be on the opposite side to the skimmer, so that the return is pushing the water over in the direction of the skimmer. The skimmer is set in the wall of your pond, and the height that it's set in the wall is going to be determined by your water level. So what I recommend that you do is that you draw an imaginary line on the wall of your pond, and you say to yourself, that is going to be the level of your water. And then you imagine that that line is going through this skimmer about 2/3 of the way up the face, and that gives you your position, and it gives you your elevation in the wall. If the skimmer is too low in the wall, then when you come to fill the pond up, the water will be right up to the top. It might even be coming over the back of the skimmer, and you won't be able to fill the pond up properly. If it's set too high in the wall, then when the pond's full, there's not going to be any water in the skimmer, and the pump might be sucking air into the pump all the time. Mounting this in your wall is simply a matter of leaving a gap in your block work, positioning this where you need it to be, and then filling the gaps around it with broken pieces of brick and fillets of mortar. Obviously the pipe out the back needs to be left accessible, because you're going to run this out to your pump. You can buy wide mouth versions of these things and adapters that turn them into wide mouth skimmers. Also extension components that help them to reach through the wall, but they don't work any better. It's just a convenience thing. If you didn't get an opportunity to build the skimmer into the wall of your pond, then you do have some more options, of course. This particular one is the Oaza Swim Skim 50. It's completely self-contained. It has a floating pontoon, a weir plate and a basket with its own little pump built into the bottom. These things are okay. They actually can work better than what you're expecting. The problem with them is that they can be awkward to maintain, and they can look unsightly in the pond. A really useful thing to bear in mind is that you don't necessarily have to take the basket straight out the top of this thing. If you wanted to cover over the top, it is possible to extract the basket through the opening on the front like that. On some ponds, you'll see that the water out the skimmer is being piped directly into the filter system. That's not my preferred way of doing things. What I like to do is to take the pipe out the back and run it directly to the pump. On the pump, you're going to have a T-piece and a couple of valves so that you can pull water from your filter system and from your skimmer simultaneously. And the valves allow you to regulate the flow. I prefer that method rather than the direct into the filter method, because what that does is it allows you to precisely control how much water is going through the skimmer, and it gives you a really positive pull on the skimmer. There is no requirement to filter the water from the skimmer. The only reason you've got the skimmer is to collect the leaves and the uneaten food in this little basket. If you absolutely must filter the water that's come from the skimmer, you can do that by passing your water through a bead filter or through one of the Tempest filters that have become popular recently. But my point is that by connecting it straight to the pump, it gives you control over it, and it allows you to, it makes sure that as much water as possible goes down the bottom drain, and we're going to talk about that in another video soon. And it also gives you control and flexibility over how you install it. It works really well if you just pull water straight through the front face of that. So this is another option, the Oaza Swim Skim 40. This one is designed to be retrofitted into the pond. You need to have an existing pump. It doesn't come included with it, and the pump is connected to a piece of hose that runs to this hose tail. This thing's got a tray where you need to put something heavy like pebbles or rocks or something, and then that stands on the bottom of your pond and the pump creates the flow. The top section of the skimmer works pretty good. It really is efficient at drawing in surface material. The problem with this is they often end up falling over, and the pipework that's running out to your pump traps the solids and prevents it from getting through either to your bottom drain or to your pump properly. And also another very annoying problem with this is that when air gets introduced in the top, which it often does, it causes an airlock to occur, and it can be really awkward to get the pump running again. A few weeks ago I had a conversation with someone and I told them that you could almost fit a skimmer onto a pond with a liner with your eyes closed. I'm not quite going to try and do it with a blindfold, but I'm going to show you a method that is so incredibly foolproof that this is absolutely the best way of doing it. This method works equally well for a bottom drain or a tank connector or a skimmer such as this. This is the problem. Your skimmer's in the wall. How do you now work out where these holes are going to be? And the problem is slightly more exaggerated when it's an actual real world situation, because if you put that flange on there, even if you get that flange perfectly lined up, that is going to be hidden behind your liner, and that flange is just going to keep dropping off. I've seen some people do this. They cut an hole in the liner where they think it needs to be, and then what they're doing is they're trying to poke this in there, get the screws in place, and basically mess about. So this is the secret. You need a few pieces of metal peg or wooden pegs, matches, bamboo skewers or something like that, and all you're going to do is you're going to stick one in the holes at the corner like that. And then you're going to put your first gasket on. This is all behind your liner. It's on a vertical wall, so it's not going to fall off. That'll hold it on there nicely. Now here's your liner. You can't see any of this when it's in your pond because you're stood in your pond with water up to your waist. The liner goes over the top like that. And straight away you can see exactly where those 4 screw holes are. And you can even just pop your liner through like that. This is quite thick rubber liner, over 1 millimeter thick. This will work equally well with PVC or rubber. Obviously recommend a rubber liner, far better quality rubber liner on any pond. We've got that lined up. Now we're going to put the gasket on. On goes the gasket, and it's stretched out, so it's going to be perfectly lined up with the holes underneath as well. Now the main flange, that just goes on the top like that. And now we can be completely confident that all of these holes are lined up properly with the gasket, and we can fire in our screws. Once you've got a few screws in, the only thing that you need to do is take out your metal pegs. Easy as that. And put the rest of your screws in. And as I said, this method will work equally well with a bottom drain, with tank connectors, or with a skimmer. absolutely completely idiot proof. And then all that you need to do is cut away the liner from inside. If you're doing a decent job, you take your time with that. Then you're going to get yourself a nice sharp knife. This knife's not nice and sharp, by the way. To just trim away the liner. When you're doing a professional job, you're going to trim that extra material off nice and neatly there. It's as easy as that. You can literally do that with a blindfold. Can't go wrong. When you build your next pond, make sure you give some serious consideration to installing a pond skimmer, particularly one that you're going to build into the wall. I hope that you found this video interesting. Got lots more coming. Please consider subscribing to the channel if you're not already subscribed. I'm going to say bye for now from Lee at the Japanese Water Gardens.